Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I've had Michael Zara from Drone Delivery Canada on my show before because he's got this fascinating business model where he's using drones to deliver goods. I think last time, Michael, we chatted that we were delivering emergency goods to Indigenous communities and things like that. And you were telling me the future was going to be really things like FedEx that we were going to be delivering. But I understand you've got a big announcement of a partnership with the airport in Edmonton. So hello, how are you? Welcome to our show. Give us a little update and tell us about your deal in Edmonton, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you again. Yeah, we had a couple of announcements for a couple of projects, one in BC and one in Alberta. Edmonton International Airport, we signed and announced a few weeks ago. And the implementation process is starting. We should be up and running in a couple of months there. So we're very excited about that. It's going to be using our Sparrow drone, which is our smallest drone, electric drone. And the point of origin is going to be on the airport property. And the point of destination is going to be in Nisku, which is an industrial park just east of the airport in Leduc County. So the route doesn't utilize the full range of the Sparrow. It's going to be a few kilometers, but the Sparrow's got a range of about 30 kilometers and about 4.5 kilograms payload, and we'll be moving cargo back and forth in both directions.
What type of cargo is it going to be moving?
It's going to be a broad range of cargo. There's a few partners involved in this project. There's Edmonton International Airport themselves, and then there is Zing Final Mile, and also Apple Express. So this will be a combination of commercial, industrial, and consumer type cargo, but it's going to be really a B2B application. Both the point of origin and the point of destination will be businesses.
Now, I would have thought, and we talked about this before, that the benefit of using a drone is if you're going through really strange topography, or if you're in a remote community, or something like that. I've been to the Edmonton Airport and looked out the window of the boardroom. It's pretty flat.
Yeah, I mean, the use cases for drones are typically remote communities where access is a challenge, or where there are time-critical deliveries, or if you want to isolate against a pandemic virus, for instance, like we're having now, and you want to limit person-to-person contact. In this particular case, the parties are using this as what we envision as a first step to something larger. So this is really a proof of concept for them. It's the first time that anybody's going to be doing drone delivery at an airport. So we're very excited about that. So for them, there's a lot of learnings, and this is really their first step towards something that's going to be broader, based at the airport to a variety of communities and areas and businesses around the airport in greater distances.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. When we chatted before, you had told me that there was some challenge that you had to give some thought to how, drones and helicopters and airplanes and all that kind of stuff interact. How do you manage that? What kind of regulations exist?
So we've been certified by Transport Canada, who's the regulator in Canada, for quite a few years now. We've got a very strong and collaborative relationship with them and with NAV Canada, and of course now with Edmonton International Airport. So our system, and it's really a fully integrated system that flies unmanned automatically, allows us to fly safely and confidently in active airspace. So at the airport, now we're not going to be crossing the runway. We'll be flying in the opposite direction, so no issue there. But the airspace is busy, obviously, around the airport, and we need to coordinate with the airport if there's any issues with other airplanes or any other kind of traffic. And we can do that through our software system called Flight, which monitors weather, monitors other aircraft. The system is monitored by the Operations Control Center 24/7, 365 for any of our projects anywhere in the world. So we have the ability to see exactly what's going on and make sure that it's a safe environment, despite the fact this is at an airport and has a bit more complexity.
We're chatting tonight with the CEO of Drone Delivery Canada, Michael Zara. I apologize. Is that the correct pronunciation of your last name?
Zara.
Zara. I apologize, Zara. Drone Delivery Canada, about the announcements of a big deal partnership with Edmonton Airport. We're going to take a break and come back more with Michael Zara in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight about drones. Drone Delivery Canada, the president CEO, Michael Zera, has joined us. Michael, let's take a step back if we could. Tell me a little bit about Drone Delivery Canada. How long you've been around?
So we've been in Canada for a little over 5 years, a great Canadian success story. We're publicly traded. Obviously, in the beginning, we focused on developing the technology and then getting regulatory approval from Transport Canada. And a few years ago, we transitioned from being a startup to commercialized. Our first customers and our first revenue started in 2020. So still a new-ish company in a new industry, but we've been making great strides and signing customers and implementing like the one we're talking about at Edmonton Airport. So very exciting.
Are you public or private?
We're publicly traded on the TSXV, ticker symbol FLT, and on the OTCQX in the United States under the ticker symbol TAKOF.
And what's your market cap?
Our market cap is a little under 300 million today.
That's pretty good. Are you happy with that?
We're continuing to plan on growing the business, so we'll see what happens in the future. But it is a new industry, and I think we're really at an inflection point where, globally the industry is getting a lot of traction. So I think the future is quite promising for the industry.
And what about yourself, sir? Have you been in aeronautics before? Are you a transportation guy or engineer? What's your background?
My background is I'm an electrical engineer, and I've got an MBA in business, and I've got a professional logistics designation. So a good fit with the company and what we do. I actually had a relationship with Drone Delivery Canada through my past company where I worked, and we worked on a proof of concept. I think it was actually the first delivery of a real order from a real customer or from a real business to a real customer in North America. So I had a bit of a relationship with them then, and they wanted to bring on a CEO to take the business commercialized and operational, and that's been my mandate. So very exciting last couple of years.
Awesome. Congratulations. Tell me where you think drones are in our life 5 or 10 years from now.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, what we're focused on is, what we can do today under the regulations and under the technology. And that's mostly, I would say, rural, remote, maybe a little bit of suburban, and mostly B2B. I mean, you see a lot of videos here and there about delivering, muffins and coffee and pizza and all that kind of stuff. And that's great, but that's really not our business model, because the regulations are a little restrictive at this point, although they are relaxing and evolving over time. So really the market and the business is B2B today, rural, remote, a little bit of suburban. But as you move forward, I think you'll see a lot more urban deliveries, B2B, and then ultimately residential. And our focus is not really on, the small drone only. We have the Sparrow, which is our smallest, but then we move to the Condor, which has a range of 200 kilometers and a payload capacity of 180 kilograms. So then you start getting into some more sort of heavy industrial and commercial tech applications like oil and gas and mining and these sort of things. So I think that's where the business is going to be in the next little while, then residential. And then, we're not involved in it today, but, who knows what's going to happen in the future. In the distant future, you'll probably see unmanned flying taxis, but that's many, many years away. Unmanned
flying taxis?
But it's quite a few years away, but I think we'll see it in our lifetime for sure.
So it's going to be the Jetsons. The Jetsons it's going to actually come to truth.
We're right at the cusp of the Jetsons for sure.
Unbelievable. So let's talk about your two technology drones again for a second here. So one was called the Sparrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Sparrow is the smallest one.
Give me a sense how big.
It's roughly maybe a little smaller than a meter by a meter by a meter, just to kind of frame it. I mean, it's obviously a lot larger than a consumer drone that you might buy for one of your kids at the Walmart or something like that. But and then we move up to the Condor, which is basically a small helicopter, gasoline powered, range of 200 kilometers, payload capacity of 180 kilograms or almost 400 pounds. So our focus is really on the medium and then larger size applications.
So what's the difference between a Condor and a helicopter? That the Condor is unmanned? Is that the only difference?
Yeah, our drones are really an unmanned automated system. So we fly, or our preferred model is to fly from a depot called a drone spot. We fly from a depot to a depot, which is what we're going to be doing at the Edmonton International Airport project. And we monitor from our operations control center, but otherwise there's no person that's manually flying with a controller. So yeah, absolutely. The Condor is a small helicopter. Literally, it looks like that, but it's unmanned.
And let's review some of your current projects. So you've got this deal with Edmonton, and you're going to be going B2B from the Edmonton airport to a user. You also told me about flying to an Indigenous community. Tell us about some of your other projects.
Yeah, this is actually going to be our fourth First Nations community project in Canada. We've done 3 in Ontario, and we announced a project with the University of British Columbia, UBC Faculty of Medicine, to implement a project in the Fraser Lake area. So that process of implementation has just started. So we should be operating there in a couple of months, and it's going to be between the village of Fraser Lake and the Stilatin First Nation community. So again, using the Sparrow drone, and it's going to be a variety of cargo, but mostly a healthcare focused application with the Faculty of Medicine at UBC, and also with Life Labs as a partner in the project.
What are you going to be, if Life Labs is part of it, what are you taking, testing material?
Yeah, there's going to be a variety of things, again, really focused on healthcare, but it could be moving biologicals. We can do temperature control and temperature monitoring with our drones. Dry spot blood tests, maybe vaccines, a variety of things that are definitely going to be healthcare related.
Fantastic. And some of your Indigenous communities in Ontario, what are you shipping?
So we had 3 projects in Ontario. One was with Moose Cree First Nation a couple of years ago, and it was a variety of cargo. It was some biological dry spot blood tests. It was automotive repair parts and these sort of things, because the community was partially on the mainland and partially on the island of Moose Factory. And then we recently had, directly as a result of the pandemic, 2 First Nations projects also in Northern Ontario. One was Beausoleil First Nation, and the other was Georgina Island First Nation. And coincidentally, they were also communities with a portion of the community on the island and a portion of the community in the mainland. And they wanted to be able to move cargo back and forth, but limit person-to-person contact to prevent outsiders from bringing the virus into under the island community. But they needed to keep the supply chain open, so we were able to do that with the Sparrow drone.
This is fascinating. Do you think it's going to have a lot more applicability to remote communities? It must, one would think, for healthcare.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people don't realize that First Nations communities are, number one, remote. I think people know that, but as a result of their remoteness, they often have poor healthcare infrastructure, and as a result, often have greater underlying healthcare issues that are not properly being addressed. So this is one way to provide access, provide better healthcare, provide more reliable food supply, more cost-effective delivery of a variety of things like e-commerce parcels and what have you. So there's economic benefit, and there's also social benefit. So it's really exciting. And there's probably 1,000 roughly Indigenous communities in Canada. So definitely an opportunity.
So let's take a look at the economics for a second. And I don't know what one you want to look at, but if you're shipping from either UBC or from one community in Northern Ontario to another one, tell me what the cost of that shipping in versus a manned helicopter versus a truck. Is there any way to think through the comparative economics?
Yeah, it's difficult because it really depends case by case. But if you look at when we did the project in Moose Cree First Nation, it was a couple of years ago, but I think the helicopter was about $1,800 an hour, which is awfully expensive, but it's also very inefficient. So there could be examples of a community that uses a helicopter to, and you can imagine an elder needs to go for a blood test. They put that elder on a helicopter, very troublesome for them. And then also the expense of doing that. And then they take them to a clinic for a blood test, and then they fly them back. So a lot of issues with that. So instead, why can't you have them do a blood test at a small clinic and then fly the sample? So, that's sort of very obviously cost effective. But there are other applications in healthcare where it's hard to put a price on it. And then there are other applications like in mining and oil and gas where efficiencies or waiting for repair parts or these sort of things, time can be significant money. So the ROI in these projects varies from healthcare, which is hard to put a price tag on, to very high ROI for industrial and commercial type projects. Now, the intent is not to replace a high density route with a truck that's very optimized. It's really about where access is difficult, which we've got a lot in Canada and globally, or where time is critical. So we did a project where we're moving a defibrillator in a rural environment to somebody having a simulated cardiac arrest, and we can get there faster than an ambulance. So you can be saving lives. So hard to put a price tag on a lot of the projects that are healthcare related.
So I recently visited a courier company's depot, and it was fascinating because there were big, huge trucks, small trucks, vans, and then things that almost looked like they were. And the way they described it is, yeah, well, that one's going downtown, and that one's going to the suburbs, and that one's going to a whole bunch of small little drop-offs. Are you going to have that plus a couple of drones sitting at the end for the remote deliveries?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could easily envision that some of our courier customers might use a large truck that's very efficient and filled to capacity to bring to some break point. And then from there, they've got last mile inefficiencies where they need to do distribution. And there's a lot of what they call windshield time or stem time, where it doesn't make sense to send a truck with 2 or 3 packages, and you can send it quickly by drone. So you can cut costs, you can drive efficiencies, but also what we see with our customers is there could potentially be incremental revenue opportunities. If you can get a package to somebody same day or within a few hours instead of 2 or 3 days, some customers might be willing to pay a premium for that. So not only cost savings and efficiencies, but they have potential to generate incremental revenue, which a lot of courier companies are excited about as well.
Are there many companies in the drone business in Canada, or are you one of the only ones?
Yeah, not really. I mean, again, I don't want to sound naive that there's nobody in the business or arrogant that there's not ever going to be somebody in the business, but I would say by far we're a leader in terms of the breadth and depth and scope of what we can do in the portfolio of drones that we have and the sophistication of projects and software and these sort of things. So I would say, by far we're definitely a leader globally and certainly in Canada.
Give me a sense, how much does the Sparrow cost and how much does the Candor cost?
We don't really break out pricing because we don't really sell the drone. So like for a Sparrow project at Edmonton Airport or the UBC project, we don't sell a drone and walk away. So it's not the same as walking into a Walmart and buying a DJI drone for your kid for a birthday and away you go. It's really sold as a turnkey solution. So there would be drone spot depots, there would be, one or multiple drones, there's a battery management system, and then it's sold as a managed service. The customer doesn't own the hardware. We license the software and effectively lease the system to them and then provide a managed service on a monthly basis for a monthly fee. So we don't really sell the hardware. So it's not really broken out as such.
But can you give me a sense? Are we talking about $100,000 or $1 million if you actually had to buy one?
It really, well, again, we don't sell the drone by itself because you can't really.
But you buy them or you get them made.
No, well, we assemble them. It's our intellectual property and patents and these sort of things. So we actually assemble them. We don't buy them.
I can't go on your balance sheet and find out how much one of these things costs.
No, and it's not something that we just buy off the shelf from somebody and then just resell it. It's actually something that's assembled by us, but it's sold as a complete solution with multiple components and services and these sort of things.
You're in a fascinating business.
Yeah, it's very interesting, very exciting.
So you talked about unmanned taxis, flying taxis sometime in the future, the Jetsons. Is this 5 years or 50 years away?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really our focus. Our focus is on cargo, but just for fun to kind of guess what the future might look like. I mean, definitely, I think that's something that's going to happen. I think it's still quite a few years, I would say 5+, before you see regulations allowing an unmanned flying taxi in an urban area like Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal. So I guarantee it'll happen in our lifetime, but I would say 5+ years away in any kind of sophisticated, high density urban environment.
I interviewed a guy whose job was to write the regulations for how robot deliveries on sidewalks were going to interact with humans. And he described an unbelievably intricate set of rules that had to apply. If that's what a wheeled robot has to abide by, I got to imagine the drone rules are going to be unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a highly regulated industry, which we welcome, and we don't want an industry that's not regulated, and everybody's kind of cowboy, and in the airspace is unsafe and a disaster. But yeah, definitely, it's a regulated industry. We welcome. Again, we've been working with Transport Canada and Nav Canada, developing the technology, working within the regulations for for many years now. So we've got a high level of comfort in terms of how to do it with discipline and safety. So. I personally think you're going to see the use of drones grow more than unmanned cars and trucks. I mean, the airspace is pretty empty compared to a highway like the 401 in Toronto. So you can imagine there's a lot less variables.
Do you think drones are going to come? Helicopter taxi, airplane taxi, unmanned helicopter taxi rides are going to come before autonomous vehicles?
No, not unmanned flying taxis with people in them. I'm talking about drones that are unmanned flying cargo. Okay. I think you're going to see that before you see widespread driverless cars where you can just sit back in the back seat and read a magazine while your car is driving for you, because you can imagine the airspace is pretty empty in a remote area versus a car on the 401 highway in Toronto. The unmanned flying taxis, again, I'm just talking about that for fun. It's going to come, but it's still many years away.
Well, I got to tell you that I always dreamt of being George Jetson. So when you launch that business model, that business segment, you got to give me a call, okay?
Well, we're focused on cargo for now, but we'll see what happens in the future.
Congratulations on your deal with Edmonton. Now we're going to take a break for some messages, and we're going to be joined by a senior executive at the Edmonton Airport. He's going to talk to me a little bit about why he's interested in drones when his business is all about airplanes, and why he entered into this partnership with Drone Delivery Canada. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Stay with us. Come back in a minute.